Good morning and welcome to Rosslyn Hill Chapel, a spiritual home for open minds, and congratulations for making it through the stormy wasteland on your way to the chapel this morning. I'm Reverend Kate Dean. I'm proud to serve as the minister for this beautiful and sacred place. Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, there is a place for you here in our Unitarian community. Our Bright Lights Children's Chapel and Creche is available this morning for children aged 2 and above. Babies under 2 are welcome to join in the creche but need to be accompanied by an adult. And if you're watching from home today, please do join us in the virtual side aisle at midday. The Zoom link was sent out in our weekly email update, and you can also find it in the description, the YouTube description, just below the video screen. And for those of you in the chapel, you can join us in the real side aisle for refreshments, tea and conversation after the service. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, we have our postponed workshop. It's called Black History is Our History, led by the cultural historian Holly Maples. And so that will be an interesting interactive workshop from 2 until 4 this afternoon. We are also hoping to make a short video of parts of the workshop for those people who can't join us. So if you're interested in receiving that video, please do send me an email. At 6 p.m. this evening, we have our regular 30 minutes of mindfulness. That's at 6 p.m., half an hour of mindfulness. And then at 7, our evening gathering is Soul Fuel, our monthly gathering of acoustic music, poetry and storytelling. And this month we have wonderful singer-songwriters Russell Swallow and Adam Wedd, as well as storyteller Sarah Rundle and members of our own poetry group performing. So that's at 7 p.m. this evening. And just a reminder, next Sunday morning is our Interfaith Remembrance Sunday service, and this will start at 10:55, so just slightly earlier to enable us to observe the 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. So, Remembrance Sunday at 10:55. You can find all of this information on our website, and all of our other activities are on the website too. But if you prefer a paper copy, our Open Mind newsletter, the latest version, the November edition, is available from the steward's table at the back of the chapel. We have returned to our practice of passing the collection basket during the service, and we'll do this during the offertory music. For some of us, this will be a symbolic act, especially if we make our contribution by extra donations monthly, or if you intend to pay by card. Our card reader will be available by the piano after the service. This month we are supporting our own chapel's cold weather shelter, and the first shelter was held last Friday, very successfully, I hear. And so our collection today will be divided between the upkeep of this chapel and this very worthy cause of the cold weather shelter, which runs from now until mid-January. If you are a UK taxpayer, you can actually boost your cash donation or your online donation by completing a gift aid form. So we do encourage you to do that if you can. We begin our worship service by lighting our chalice flame, the symbol of our liberal religious faith. Our flame is lit with words by Eric Walker Wickstrom. Here today, in this place, with these people, may we listen so that we can hear, May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice that we light our way. Now we come together as a spiritual community and we like to get to know one another, so I invite you now to turn to someone near you to say your name and welcome them to chapel this morning. Thank you, everyone. It's so lovely to hear your conversations, and I do hope we can continue them over tea and coffee in the side aisle after the service. One final notice that I forgot to mention, that directly after the service, we have our monthly Soul Circle discussion. This month's theme is change, and so we'll be discussing the theme of change and any questions that you have about Unitarianism. So we'll be gathering at the back of the chapel. Grab yourself a cup of tea and come and join me for our Soul Circle discussion. But for now, let's sing our first hymn. It's in your green hymn book, and it's called For the Beauty of the Earth. It's hymn number 14, 1-4, For the Beauty of the Earth. And as is our custom, please listen to the introduction and then rise after the introduction. Hymn number 14. except for the children. We have a lovely story for you this morning. So please do come forward. Got a little fish hiding behind there. You want to come and sit here? Good morning everyone. Hi Isaac, you're going to come and sit too. So I think some of you may have heard this story before, but we're going to do it a little bit differently today. It's called Adventures of a Puddlefish, and it's a traditional story, but this is a retelling thanks to Margaret Silf. So there was a big tree, and the big tree had really big roots, and the roots formed a hollow next to a river. And in the rainy season, a puddle would form in the roots, and a small group of puddlefish settled in. Do you want to show me your puddlefish? They go a bit like this. And they like to swim in circles, and they like trying to catch water beetles, and they like to fight over what they caught. One day, a brightly coloured rainbow fish came swimming along the river and flopped into the puddle. This rainbow fish had beautiful shiny scales, and she was smiling. Well, the puddlefish were a bit surprised by this, and they said, "Where are you from?"
I come from the ocean. It's what we're made for. It goes on forever. It's full of wonderful creatures, brimming with movement and life. Leap into the river. It will take you there.
Wow, that was something that they'd never heard of before. But they were a bit scared and a bit worried. And the realist fish said, "This puddle is reality. You are deluded about the ocean." And the scaredy fish said, "No one would ever dare make that leap into the great unknown." And the political fish said, "Both sides of the argument have merit. We should form a discussion group and talk it through." Well, the rainbow fish said,
Talking won't get you to the ocean. Summer's coming and your puddle will soon dry out. Then what will you do?
And with that, the rainbow fish leapt back into the river and swam away. Now, a few brave puddlefish took a leap of faith and leapt into the river and swam off to the ocean themselves. But the others just gazed in pity and went back to swimming in circles and catching water beetles and fighting over what they caught. Thank you very much, Lilibet. Do you want to take a bow? Thanks to our guest rainbow fish. So hopefully you can take a leap of faith. We're going to be thinking about change today in our service, so you can talk to your mummies and daddies about that. But now we're going to sing the children out to their Bright Lights activities. You are invited to light a candle for joys and concerns during our music for reflection a little later. But for now, let us pray our prayer of names. I invite you into time of prayer and meditation. We come together in fellowship each Sunday with hearts full of joys and full of concern. We think of all of those suffering through ill health, through lack of resources, and through violence. And we think with joy of all of the activities we can take part in that bring life to our lives and enrich our existence. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to say their name aloud so that we can all hold them in our prayers. Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, we give thanks for those who bring us joy, and we pray for the safekeeping of all those whom we hold in concern. For all those names, spoken and unspoken, may they be surrounded by the loving kindness that we offer them today. Blessed be, and amen. And now I invite you to sing with me the second hymn. The words and music are in your service sheet. We'll sing it twice, voice still and small. Our first reading is from the Book of Kings, and I've chosen the modern Message version, slightly adapted. Then he was told, "Go stand on the mountain at attention before God. God will pass by." A hurricane wind ripped through the mountains and shattered the rocks before God. But God wasn't to be found in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. But God wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire. But God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle and quiet whisper, a still, small voice. When Elijah heard the quiet voice, he muffled his face in his great cloak and went out to the mouth of the cave and stood there. A quiet voice asked, "So Elijah, now tell me, what are you doing here?" Elijah said it again, "I've been working my heart out for God, the God of the angel armies. Because the people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, destroyed your places of worship, and murdered your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me." Here ends the reading. And now we take our collection, which will be divided between the upkeep of this beautiful chapel and our cold weather shelter. At a recent Unitarian ministers' conference, we experienced a ritual of passing our chalice from one person to another. And it reminded me of when we used to pass the chalice around in our spiritual development classes, when we would sit together in a circle in the chapel. These days, many of our classes are online, and it's almost impossible to replicate this when you're meeting via video link. It's only one small example, but it is one of the changes which makes me realize how much we've had to change and accept our new way of being. Take a moment now to think of the changes in your life and in the life of the world in the past year, the past month, even the past few days. It is not surprising, then, that a major English dictionary publisher has named permacrisis as its word of the year. The word is defined as an extended period of instability and insecurity. And I'm sure we can all recognize this definition when we think of the aftermath of the pandemic, of the war in Ukraine, natural disasters, and political instability. All these things we have experienced just in recent years. In explaining its decision for choosing permacrisis as its word of the year, the publisher said it sums up quite succinctly how truly awful 2022 has been for so many people. Torrential rain and shorter days don't help those of us who struggle in winter, I'm sure. And at these low points, we may ask, where is God in all of this? For some people, a lifelong faith in God can be tested in tough times. For others, it is exactly those times when they turn to God for comfort. As Unitarians, we discern our own theology through our experience of the world and by learning from the wisdom of different faith traditions. However, many of us still choose to recognize that there is something beyond ourselves, the higher power in our lives, or as a shorthand, the thing I like to call God. I believe that when we pour our faith into something, it is replenished and returned to us when we are in need. At times like these, we might think of the epic challenges faced by many of the characters in the Hebrew Bible. We may think of Job, a pious man who is tested by God and loses his wealth, his family, and all that makes life comfortable. And the prophet Elijah, who we heard about in our earlier reading. He had challenged the prophets of another god, Baal, and his God had prevailed, proving Elijah to be a faithful prophet. Yet it was certainly spiritually, physically, and mentally draining. And he must have been shocked and disappointed when the evil King Ahab dispatched his fellow prophets and wanted to put him to death as well. Fearing for his life and pursued by his enemies, he ended up sheltering in a cave, deeply depressed. And here, the voice of God came to him, not as a roaring wind or a raging fire, but as a still, small voice. The theologian John Nichols suggests that when we experience this still, small voice, it is, in his words, less than a whisper, but more than sheer silence, making the silence around us feel like something about to burst with meaning. It is, he says, a thought that prowls around the edges of our consciousness, a nagging thought we cannot get rid of, a thought that we finally have to wrestle with to gain its fullest meaning. In the end, we do not come much closer than this passage about Elijah does, suggesting that there is something quietly, insistently wanting our attention. He concludes, we may not ever understand this still, small voice completely, but we do need to pay attention. When we aren't paying attention, we miss the lessons that we can learn from our situation. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron counsels, let difficulty transform you, and it will. In my experience, we just need help learning how not to run away. By paying attention, we are able to reflect on what has happened, how we are dealing with it, and what to do in the future. We can imagine new ways of being with ourselves, being with each other, and how we interact with the world around us. As the sci-fi author Octavia Butler writes, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. So by listening, we find a connection to the eternal and a way to accept the change which is all around us. I invite Denise to come forward and give our second reading, a poem that she has written.
Hush and remain in the land of the undefined. To yourself, your innermost self. Refrain from calling things this and that in your innermost self, lest it quickly becomes a judgment for or against. Hush. Even to call yourself that ethereal creature mooching mystically in the woods with her animal whispering whims and whimsicals, or whatever turns on your spiritual fancy. Hush. From even that seemingly innocent identity may turn you into a roaring, raging monster soon enough. What is it to walk the famous middle way of the monks and Buddhas? It is not some bland, energyless state, courageless form, undefined, non-preferenced, lack of passion. It is not a wishy-washy way. It is a grand unity of both. It is the impossible of opposites resolved into one, into what could not be imagined or defined with your small, differentiated mind. Thank you.
Now we have our music for reflection. Please do come and light a candle if you wish. Excuse me. We may feel that the only constant in our lives is change, but there is another constant, the eternal. And for me, it is about reaching or finding a balance between reaching inwards and reaching out. As Unitarians, we benefit from being able to draw from so many different wisdom traditions. So we are better equipped to address the twin pools of life. The pull on the one hand that we want to be individuals with complete freedom to explore our beliefs, but also that we need to recognize we are part of an interdependent web of life. We are connected to each other and the world around us. We can call upon this web of connections to steady ourselves in times of turbulence. I believe this is what keeps us coming back to our spiritual communities. It's why we put up with little foibles and the quirks that emerge when we spend time with other human beings. Those shared experiences in the presence of the divine can unite us as one body so that we do not have to face these changes and challenges alone. It is what enables our encounters with God in this sacred place. And of course, as Unitarians, it is up to us to define God, the you addressed in Thomas Merton's poem, the you that emphasizes, soothes, and reassures when he writes, "Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone." We need to allow ourselves these moments for reflection, to be open to that still small voice, so that we do not face our perils alone. To trust our inner light and listen to the voice that only seems to speak when we are calm, awake, and truly listening. May we have the courage to face these changes with new delight. As Joseph Worthlin observed, those who stand at the threshold of life, always waiting for the right time to change, are like the person who stands at the bank of a river, waiting for the water to pass so that they can cross on dry land. Or we can think of the advice of that fabulously colourful rainbow fish we heard earlier, to take a leap of faith and embrace change and see where the current may carry us. I invite you now into a short guided meditation, so please assume your meditation positions. You might want to put your feet on the floor so you can feel your connection to the earth. Sitting in a relaxed but alert position, perhaps with your eyes closed, or soften your gaze as we take a few calm, deep breaths in and out. I invite you to imagine that you are sitting in a comfortable chair in your favorite place, perhaps in your home or somewhere else. Take a moment to notice the things around you, the colors and textures. And now, in the moments of stillness which will follow, reflect on changes in your life or in the life of the world. Perhaps focusing on one particular change. Become open to what it has to teach you. Turn your focus inward to your heart space and wait to hear the still small voice which may speak in these moments of stillness. In a moment, I will invite you to return to the chapel space. You can choose to keep your eyes closed, but my invitation is that you turn to someone near you and share something of your experience. You don't have to reveal any details that you're not comfortable sharing. Perhaps just sharing how it was for you. And listen out for John's playing. When our time of sharing is closing, you'll hear some music. Thank you, everyone. Let us sing now together our final hymn. It's in your green hymn book, number 45, Come Down, O Love Divine. Hymn number 45. Our blessing adapted from words by Bob Dylan. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of change shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. And may you stay in your heart forever young. Blessed be. Please be seated. Thank you to John for the beautiful music. Thanks to Denise for her reading. You can hear more of Denise's poetry this evening at Soul Fuel at 7 o'clock. Please do join us for tea and coffee in the side aisle, and the card reader will appear on a small table by the piano shortly. Thank you, everyone.